All right, what's up, everybody? Nate here, Dads Who Mosh, and only Nate here. If you listened to last week's episode, you know that my counterpart, Jesse, is on a cruise this week. On a cruise with no Wi-Fi, because apparently Wi-Fi on cruises is expensive. I've never done a cruise before, and I'm trying to. I mean, I know like Jesse and his family are like, they're like they love cruises. I've never tried it before. I feel like if I did a cruise, I'd want to do like an Alaskan cruise, maybe, just to like be somewhere I haven't been. But anyways, I'll have to pick Jesse's brain on that. But Jesse and his family are on a cruise, and I'm just running solo today. I did try. I talked about this in the last episode. I did try to get my dad on here because my dad hates the type of music that we talk about, but my dad's a good dad, and I figured, why not try to get him on here. And I went back and forth, had a couple other people that I was, going to try to get on, and then at the end of the day, we're just winging it solo. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for joining. Jesse will be back with us next week. We have some more guests that we are lining up, without giving too much away, but we are very excited about some of these guests that are in the hardcore world, the mental health world, both the dad world. We're trying to get some guests that kind of check all these boxes. So really excited about some of the guests that we have coming up, but appreciate you guys checking in last night. So I'm recording this earlier than in the week than we usually do. I know this is going to come out on Monday. Today is Thursday, and I was at the Drain show last night at the Marquee in Tempe. And I know I've talked about this show a lot, but I was kind of like, I went back and forth on, should I go, should I not go? But at the end I was like, because I've seen these bands before. The Marquee in Tempe, if you're unfamiliar, and most people have venues that they like, venues that they don't like. It's not my favorite venue because there's always a barrier. It's usually like for bigger bands. It's not so much like the punk hardcore vibe like somewhere like the Nile is here in Mesa, or the Underground at the Nile. But at the end of the day, I was like the Nile was hosting it, so the crew, Michelle and the crew that put on shows at the Nile, they were hosting it there. Obviously, Drain, is a bigger ticket band. It's a big deal that they sell a lot of tickets to stuff like this because I know it can't be cheap. And so, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I want to support that first and foremost. And I was like, you know what? Like, barrier or no barrier, you can still have fun. You can still make it fun. And so I went last night, had a ton of fun. It was awesome. Secret World was the opener. I know Secret World is from Sydney, Australia. They've got some connections with the band Speed, who I love. I think one of the guys from Speed, or maybe a couple of the guys from Speed, have played with Secret World in the past. But really great, just like great vibes, great show. Great like punk hardcore, kind of like almost like pop punk vibes mixed with hardcore. Really great. And then Haywire came out, man. And Haywire is just like, they've got to be one of my favorite bands right now. Like they just, I don't know, the spirit of Haywire, the live shows, the music, the dedication to the scene, all of that stuff, man, is just like, I love Haywire so much. I'm obsessed with Haywire right now. So fun to be able to see them. And again, barrier, no barrier, shoved my, old self up against that barrier, climbed up, grabbed the mic a few times, still had fun with it. So shout out to Haywire. I love that band so much, man. No Pressure played, which, No Pressure, that's, more on the pop punk side, obviously. Story So Far vibes, because they got Parker, same vocalist as Story So Far. Still fun. I mean, like, still fun to watch those guys. And then Drain comes out. And so here's something that I noticed about myself, and I have to, like, I'm gonna admit this here on the podcast. Okay. I have to apologize. I've been a little hypocritical. What I mean by that is, a while back I was talking about the band. Oh, I can't remember who it was. There was a band, Spirit World, not Spirit Box, Spirit World. I was like stuck between like Secret World, Spirit World. They're a hardcore band that dresses up like cowboys, and they play their show like that. And I remember in an episode, I don't like the, I don't know, the dress up thing. I was like, I don't like the performative thing. I think it's too much. I just can't get into it. But then I was thinking to myself last night, I'm watching, Drain get ready, the crew get ready for Drain to come up, and they're putting up, like palm trees, like a lifeguard seat is up there. They've got, like the guy in the shark costume dancing around the entire show. So I'm like, wait a second, this is the same thing, but I like the music. And so that's what I realized. It's not so much that I don't I think I just like, because I don't like the band Spirit World, I don't like their music. And a lot of bands that like are really performative like that, like I think typically it's just I don't like the music. And maybe it's because like a lot of those bands, just maybe the music's not great, so they put on this show. But it's like I was never into bands like Guar. I know a lot of people that love Guar. I'm just like, maybe I thought it was dorky that they dress up in like costumes and stuff like that. But I was like, no, actually, I just don't like Guar's music. I don't think I like Spirit World's music, but it's like Drain I like. So it's like, oh, I'm okay with them, throwing a surfboard out onto the crowd and riding on the surfboard because I actually like the music. So, my apologies. I don't know. I don't know if that's any better. Like, apologies to all the bands that I was like, oh, I don't like, I don't like the performance thing. I don't like the kitschy, like dress up things. Like, turns out, I guess I just don't like their music. And I tolerate, that kind of stuff with bands that I actually like. So, speaking of that, speaking of liking certain bands and not liking certain bands, we put a post out this last week, kind of about like this ongoing discussion about moshing. And, one week we were talking about, push moshing versus, like hardcore dancing. And then this last week it was, push dancing, hardcore dancing, but what about crowd killing? And Jesse was kind of talking about how it's like we were kind of like, I get it. There are certain bands and venues and settings where it's like crowd killing is fun. It's like, as long as, like there are people on there that made a good point. A lot of people are like, oh, well, there's dudes out there that, are like targeting women and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's awful. That's terrible. That can happen at any kind of a hardcore show, though. Like, that's what really sucks is, it's like you could be in a push mosh pit and guys, there's horrible people out there. Like, that's what sucks is no matter what kind of concert that you're at, there's always terrible people. So it's like you're gonna have the one guy that's like in a push pit is shoving girls over. You could be at a hardcore show and some guy, just always so happens to land his kicks right where right where a woman is, or he could have somebody crowd killing and is targeting women. Like, that stuff happens. And it sucks, and it puts a bad name on our scene. And that really sucks. That's awful. But I think, like, what we were talking about is like, yeah, crowd killing, like, as long as you're just there to have a good time. And what's funny though is like a lot of people just don't get it. A lot of people in the Instagram, posts that we had, or the YouTube posts that we have, they were just like, they just don't get it. They think it's stupid, and that's fine. But what's funny, I think too, is we get a lot of people on there. They're like, I just don't, like hardcore people are stupid, like, or like people that like this kind of stuff are dumb, or they wish they could fight, but they can't, and all this stuff. And people are like, this isn't really heavy music. Or like someone would be like, oh, well, like Jesse was talking about bands like, Missing Link, Knuckle Sandwich. People are like, those bands aren't heavy and stuff like that. Well, I'm like, that's actually interesting because, hardcore music is such a spectrum. That's what I was thinking about. I was reading through some of the comments on that social media post, and someone was like, oh yeah, this music isn't heavy. And I was like, huh, that's actually an interesting point. Because they're not wrong, or it's like, obviously like the certain musical, takes, like, what you like, what you don't like, what you think is heavy, what you don't think is heavy. That's a little subjective, right? Like, I mean, I get it all the time. People that don't listen to hardcore at all, they'll be like, oh, you like hardcore? They'll be like, oh, I like Metallica, or I like, you know, Slipknot, which I think Slipknot is heavy. Some of their songs are heavy. Um, so people will say that, and it's like, oh, in my mind, I'm like, that's not actually very heavy. But then it's like you could mention, hardcore bands like, Missing Link or whatever, and people will be like, that's not heavy. This is heavy. One of the posts I was wearing a Foundation shirt, and Foundation to me is not super heavy. They're a hardcore band. And that's really what I was thinking about as I was reading through these comments. I was like, you're kind of right. Like hardcore has evolved to this huge, I don't know, this huge genre that's not super heavy. And actually, like, I would venture to say that if you go back to the roots of hardcore, if you're listening to some of these bands that evolved out of like the punk scene of the 70s and into the 80s, they're not heavy. It's not necessarily heavy in the sense of just like, big breakdowns and just like down-tuned guitars and anything like that. Like, you're right, they're not super heavy. Like, I was standing in line to go watch, Secret World, Haywire, Drain, No Pressure. It's like, I wouldn't classify No Pressure as a hardcore band, but there's hardcore elements to it. I mean, like, there's, blast beats, there's, two-step. I mean, I know you could be like, oh, well, it's punk, it's pop punk. And I know there's like crossover, but, I was like, yeah, Haywire, hardcore band. Drain, hardcore band. Either one of those bands heavy? Not at all. And so that's what I think I realize is some people really like heavier stuff and some people don't. And then it's funny because you got some people who are like, oh, I listen to heavy stuff, but I don't hardcore dance, or I don't like crowd killing. I only like push moshing. Then you've got people that are like, I listen to like the heaviest beatdown stuff. You guys don't even know what's heavy. Like, I crowd killed this band and this band and this band. And it's just like, I think what is like crazy is I'm realizing there's such a wide spectrum. And that's what's really cool, like looking at these comments. And yeah, people get fired up online. People are like, oh, I only like this band, or that band sucks, So it's like, it's interesting how wide, hardcore is of a genre. And we were talking about that, I think, a couple of episodes ago, or maybe it was the last one, even like the term metalcore within the hardcore realm. It's like, how do you even categorize these things? It's like, is it all metal? And then it's like, there's subgenres of metal. Is it all rock? And is there some, subgenres of rock? It's like rock, and then metal, and then punk, and then hardcore, and then metalcore, and then deathcore, and then, like all is slamcore and beatdowncore, and like all this stuff. It's just all evolving. And that's what I realize is even within the hardcore genre, you've got heavy bands and you've got bands that aren't heavy really at all. And I think that's awesome. I think there's just a whole world of hardcore music, and I love it. And I think a lot of times where we can miss out is if we are just like, oh, I only like this one type of hardcore. That's the only thing that's hardcore. I think you're just missing out, man. And I think that's the thing. Like, yeah, is it weird that like I'm talking about crowd killing wearing like a Drain shirt? Like, yeah, of course it is. Like, no one's gonna crowd kill at Drain, and someone could hear me talking about crowd killing, or hardcore dancing or heavy music, and be like, what does this guy know about heavy music? He's wearing a Drain shirt. But it's like that. I think the older I get, the more I'm like, there's such a wide variety. There's of music in general, but even within hardcore music, that's like, man, there's room for all of us here. Like, I feel like if somebody like, and I used to kind of be like that. I used to kind of be like, oh, I only listen to like this. But it's like, man, really, honestly, like, you only listen to beatdown hardcore. It's like, or you only listen to, whatever, fill in the blank. It's like, man, if we just all like take a step back and we're like, this music rules. Like, any music that has any sort of like influence from hardcore, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome. So I feel like as the genre grows and as its popularity grows, like, there are purists, there are gatekeepers, there are people like, oh, I don't want people into this music because I've always been into this music. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like, different types of music resonate with different types of people. And that's the funny thing is, like, if you look at my Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, you're going to see obviously a whole bunch of hardcore bands, but it's hardcore bands on all points of the hardcore music spectrum. But a lot of times my number one band on my Spotify Wrapped, Manchester Orchestra, like, not a hardcore band at all, but I just love their music, and part of it is like yeah, it's like my go-to band. It's like if the kids are in the car, I listen to Manchester Orchestra because it's clean, right? Or if like we have people over for dinner, we've got Manchester Orchestra or whatever, it's like it's pretty safe. Um, but there's just such a wide variety of music, and I just think people should enjoy what they're in the mood to enjoy. And I go through like different stages. Like right now, like I said, like I am on such like, especially like East Coast, like, but I'm on such a Haywire kick. Boston. I am like if you were to look at my playlist right now, it's like Boston. There's like Have Heart, Bane, Haywire is all over my my playlist. But then there's a bunch of like Baltimore bands. Like I've been listening to a bunch of Trapped Under Ice lately. I've been listening to Angel Dust lately, which I'll talk about here in a second. End It, I've been listening to a whole bunch recently. And then it's like even like New York hardcore. I just like that's where I've been. But if you listen to like my most recently played playlist, even like a year ago, 6 months ago, it's not going to be like that. It probably was like heavier bands. So that's what I think, we miss out on if we're just like, no, you have to listen to this type of music or you're not hardcore. It's not how it goes, man. You can listen to all like a lot of these bands, are going to fall under that hardcore genre. And if you're listening to it, awesome. Like that's super cool. I was standing in line at one of the merch booths last night, and there was a lady there, this woman that was there, and Haywire had just played, and she had never heard Haywire in her life, and she was talking with a few of us, and she was like, yeah, I'm just getting into hardcore, just found these guys, love it. And she was going to buy some of their merch, and I was like, that's awesome. Like that's awesome. How cool is it to like never really listen to hardcore, and then you go to a Haywire show? I was like, this is a great show to get used to Haywire. But then of course there's always going to be people like, oh, hardcore, Haywire's not hardcore, like you got to listen to like whatever, fill in the blank. And I'm just like, whatever, man. Like hardcore encompasses a lot of different bands that sound really different. Um, One of those genres, though, or I think one of those subgenres within hardcore that I feel like I'm slowly starting to understand, and maybe part of it is just opening my mind, trying to listen to new kinds of music, getting burnt out on the same albums I'm listening to. It's like I just need something that sounds different. I think I'm starting to understand what I've started labeling popcore. And I don't know, maybe that's a term that's already out there. I'm really not, like with it when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I think I'm starting to understand bands that to me fall more within like the popcore genre. By popcore, like, I mean, think about pop punk. Because very similar, right? Bands like Blink 182 and, a lot of those pop punk bands that, were coming up in the late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like that. Obviously, like Blink 182 is a good example because like people that were into punk music were like, this isn't punk. Like these guys are making tons of money. This isn't punk. This doesn't count. So it was labeled pop punk because it was like more palatable for the average person to listen to. It's the same with hardcore. Like there are a lot of bands out there now that it's more like popcore. People can listen to it without like, really being into like heavier music. So like Turnstile is the number one. Popcore, like to me, Turnstile is popcore. Turnstile has elements of the hardcore genre with music that's a little bit more, it's a lot easier for like your average person to listen to. Angel Dust, Military Gun, Drug Church, those bands are all like that. They show up in the hardcore genre, but then when you listen to them, people are like, oh, it's not hardcore. But they have elements of hardcore. A lot of these guys like all grew up listening to hardcore and their old stuff is hardcore, but then it evolves into more of this popcore. And I think I'm kind of starting to get it. Again, maybe it's just because I am getting more open to that stuff. I'm a little bit more flexible. I'm not so rigid in like what I have to listen to. But yeah, I did because obviously like Angel Dust is playing at Sound and Fury. We talked about that. Angel Dust played here in Mesa. I missed them. But they're huge. They're blowing up. Obviously, Angel Dust has, a lot of tie-ins with these, Baltimore hardcore bands, Trapped Under Ice, stuff like that are more like traditional hardcore. And so like they've got those connections. And so like the more that I listen to it, the more I'm like, I feel like I can get into this, you know. And I was listening to it because we had family visiting, and I was outside barbecuing. I was like, I wasn't in the mood to listen to like, you know, some acoustic channel or something chill like folk or, you know, indie or something like that. So I was like, I'm gonna throw on the Angel Dust radio on Spotify and just kind of see what comes up. And people were into it. Like, no one was like, what is this that you're listening to? Like, it's a lot more palatable. And so I feel like I'm starting to understand it. I know when we first talked about, you know, the initial Sound and Fury lineup, you know, Jesse and I were talking about how like I don't really get Angel Dust. And there still is. Like, I don't get the huge hype, you know, like Turnstile, Angel Dust, some of these bands. Like, I don't get the huge hype. It's not my favorite type of music. But when I'm just like chilling outside, I don't want to scare people away with like, you know, the music I'm listening to. Um, I'm starting to get it. I think I'm starting to get it. And I don't think it's cultural pressure. I think I'm just like, some days I'm like, oh, this is actually like, I don't want my ears to bleed. I want to listen to something that's a bit more chill. I'm starting to get it. So who knows? Maybe, you know, maybe I'll have some of these bands on the playlist someday. Um, so I did one of the things that I wanted to throw out there is, you know, like I mentioned, we have loved, Jesse and I have loved the interaction from you guys. Like, I mean, there's people on there that are like all, you know, super supportive. People like, this is stupid, you know, the conversation, whatever. Any engagement is good engagement for us. So we've loved the engagement on, you know, our social media posts, especially around this, you know, whole topic of, you know, push moshing versus hardcore dancing, and then the whole topic of crowd killing. Obviously, people have a lot of thoughts and feelings on all of this, and it's cool to see that. I've got another question. I don't know if this is going to be, you know, quite as controversial or quite as a hot topic to talk about, and I'll ask Jesse his opinion, but I'm going to throw it out there so that we can continue the conversation once Jesse's back, and we'll throw it out there on social media to see what people say. But my question here is regarding wearing band t-shirts to that band's show, right? So like, if I'm going to go see Haywire and I put on my Haywire t-shirts or one of my Haywire t-shirts, is that cool or is that not cool? Is it dorky to wear like a band's t-shirt to their show? Or is it like, is it normal? And so like I asked because I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer to this. I'm just interested in people's thoughts, because I got to a point in my life where I was like, dude, I'm not gonna, like, are you kidding me? I'm not wearing, you know, I'm not gonna wear that band's shirt to that show. Like Weapon X, I'm not wearing my Weapon X t-shirt. I'm gonna wear like my Foundation t-shirt. I'm going to wear like my Speed t-shirt. I'm going to wear like another, you know, my Earth Crisis. I'm going to wear another Straight Edge, you know, shirt or something like that. It's like, I know people that think that way. It's like, well, I'm not, you know, I'm not a dork. Like, I'm not going to be like, because I've heard people say too, you know, somebody was, you know, posted this thing on Instagram the other day. That's like, we already know you like the band because you bought tickets to see the band. So why are you wearing their t-shirt? So I'm just curious. And I know a lot of people like, you know, they'll hit the merch table right away, and then they'll buy merch and throw the merch on, like, so they don't have to hold it all night. That makes sense to me. But I've been more of the mindset in, you know, for a lot of years where I was like, I'm not gonna wear it. Like, you know, it's like this weird, it's like you don't want the band to think you like them that that much. You know, it's like, I don't want them to look out in the crowd and see that I'm wearing their t-shirt. Like, that's too weird. But then like somebody else I saw like an opposing view on social media the other day, you know, somebody posted and they're like, why is it wrong to wear a band shirt at their show to support that band? And so I literally am just like, doesn't matter. Is this a stupid question? Probably. In the grand scheme of things, is it a stupid question? Yeah, it probably is. But I'm just curious. I'm curious what people's take is. So here's the question, you know, to all of our followers, to all the, you know, everybody out there in social media: wearing a band's shirt to that band show, good or bad? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Or is it a stupid question anyways? I'm sure someone will hop on there and be like, this is stupid. So anyways, I want to know your thoughts. I'll have to ask Jesse his thoughts as well when he's back. So want to throw that out there. Bands you should know, shifting gears a little bit here. Bands you should know. I'm probably going to butcher the in the enunciation. I'm not gonna say this band's name right. Okay. Um, Baton Arme. Baton Arme. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to my Canadian. I was saying I'm so sorry to my Canadian. Okay. So speaking of the word sorry, I'm at my gym the other day. Not to detract from Baton Arme. I want to give them their due. I'm at my gym the other day, and there is a playlist that one of the people that works at the gym, that when they're there, they play, and it's got a lot of like divorced dad rock on it. Um, and Nickelback is on the playlist a lot. And I was listening to that one. What's the name? I don't remember the name of the song. It's like um, one of the really popular songs. Never made it as a wise man, couldn't cut it as a poor man stealing. That one. What's funny is I forgot that they're a Canadian band. They're from Canada. So there's a line where he's like, "It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story." And I was like, that actually does rhyme because they're Canadian. Like, it was an American band. Is that it's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story. Like, it doesn't work. But because they're from Canada, you can rhyme sorry and story because it's actually sorry and story. Anyways, stupid story. That was a stupid story. Sorry. Baton Arme, just isolating or like all of our Canadian listeners. Sorry. Canada's great. Canada has some really great music. Point in fact, Baton Arme, and again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name of it, but they are a punk band from Quebec. Or if you watch Letterkenny, Quebec, whichever one it is. But they're so great, man. French, they sing in French. They're playing Sound and Fury. Just really super solid punk hardcore, but kind of some of those elements of, at least some of the music, like some of that almost like shoegaze stuff in the background that comes from some of these popcore bands. A ton of energy when they play live. They look the part. Really cool punk band from Quebec or Quebec. But you should go check out Baton Arme. I'm really, really excited to see those guys at Sound and Fury. I think they're, really hitting the road hard, touring and promoting their music. So you go give those guys a listen. Super fun. Someone's gonna be like, well, they're not heavy. They're not. That's not the point. But go check those guys out for sure. What we also want to do here on the podcast, and again, I'll wait for Jesse to be here for us to do this, but just, throwing this out there to everybody. What I think is also funny, and this is kind of connected with the earlier discussion with hardcore, we've got these purists, right? We've got, I was one for a long time. I feel like, it's like, I'm not going to be hardcore if somebody finds out I like this band, or I have to hate this one band, or I can't like, popcore or whatever it is. But secretly it's like there are bands that you like. So what I want to know, and we'll post this too, and again, I'll get Jesse's take. He knows it's coming, give him some time. But I know we all have guilty pleasure bands out there. I know that there are bands out there that you're embarrassed that you like, and you can't admit it to any of your other really intense hardcore friends that you like these bands. But I want to know. I want to know what those guilty pleasure bands are. And I'm going to tell you guys some of the ones that I'm not going to do it in this episode. I'm going to wait to get Jesse's take. But there are guilty pleasure bands out there that I know you guys like. And I know there are songs out there on the radio that when it comes on, you're like, I guess I'll just kind of like hang around on this station, right? Or it's like, I listen to it to make fun of it, kind of a thing. But I know there's bands out there that you guys like, that everybody likes. But you don't think you're going to be hardcore enough if you admit that you like them. So I want to know what those are. It's another thing. I want more input from you guys. I love it. So let me know about the whole wearing merch at the show thing. And, I want to know about, guilty pleasure bands that you guys like that, nobody should know that you like. Hardcore news this week. I don't have a whole lot here, but one thing that I'm super excited about just for the local, Mesa, Arizona, Phoenix Valley hardcore scene. My favorite place in the world, the Nile Theater, puts on a hardcore festival every single year called Within These Walls. If you're familiar with, where that came from, it comes from the Bane song that I put on our dad's playlist, My Therapy. Within These Walls is where I'm free. That's what it's based on. So it's a hardcore show. What I love about the Nile is it's so DIY. Um, and they just do such a good job, and it's so much fun. So Within These Walls announced the lineup for the 2026 Within These Walls Festival. The headliners, we got two headliners, Incendiary and Comeback Kid are headlining. So this is actually what I didn't realize. This is, which, I've never seen Incendiary. This is the first time that they've played in Arizona. So they're going to be headlining Within These Walls, which is great. Comeback Kid is going to be headlining. Set Your Goals is coming back, which is great. I don't think Set Your Goals has done anything for years and years. So excited to see Set Your Goals. Sky Came Falling. Jesse and I were just talking about Sky Came Falling the other day. I Am the Avalanche. And then what I love too is they've got a huge, like, they've got a whole bunch of just smaller bands too. That's what I love about Within These Walls is it's like they've got the headliners, the more popular ones. So they got Incendiary, Comeback Kid, Set Your Goals, Sky Came Falling, I Am the Avalanche. No Cure is playing. Shout out to No Cure. I would love seeing No Cure anytime I get a chance. Stateside is going to be there. So we've got some more emo, pop punk playing. This Is Hell is going to be there. Wrist Meet Razor is going to be there. So some more well-known bands obviously on the ticket, but then we've got some smaller ones, which I love. BDR, Beg for Life, Commoner, Darasum. Again, hopefully I'm saying that right. Eyes of Salt, George Washington is coming back for this one. Maldita Gente is going to be playing. Mishap, Price of Life, Sorrower, Time X Heist, straight edge band. I think they're from Colorado. So yeah, super excited for that. Anything that we can do, here to support local music, especially local music at, the Nile, the local hardcore scene here. It's alive and well, and I love it. So, excited for that. Switching, I guess, again here from the hardcore side of things to the more like, dads, husbands, like men in general, mental health. Obviously, last week we talked about Bo from Harm's Way and the Hard Lore podcast. And, I've noticed there is like a heaviness over the scene right now. Going to, Haywire last night. I'm blanking on the vocalist name from Haywire. I always do this when I'm actually on the podcast. Blanking on his name, but he had a Bo Forever t-shirt. Talked about Bo passing away, dedicated some songs to him. And, I know last week on the podcast, this whole thing with Bo and, losing people to suicide, kind of brought me back to my friend Kyle, who took his own life. And it's just like, it's crazy how, you kind of forget about that, or you don't forget, but it's like, you're not thinking about it, but then it happens to somebody else and it just kind of brings you back. And, I just had this moment in Haywire where Haywire set where they took a moment and they paused and they were talking about Bo. They were talking about people that you lost. Thinking about like, that moment where like you're at a hardcore show with your friends and you don't see that friend for a while, and then like a year later like, oh, I should reach out to so and so, but then you get busy and you don't reach out to them, and then before you know it, like you get the news that somebody has taken their own life, or they passed away some other way. And the vocalist from Haywire was just talking about how like if you don't have that yet in your life, you will. And that's really the sad fact, and that's like, it makes me sad just like thinking about it right now. If you haven't lost, and I've lost, multiple people in my life to suicide, and it's just a really sad reality. And both of the people, or at least, two main people I can think of in my life, like they were both guys and they're both dads. And, it's easy to like take a step back and be like, oh, well, how could they do that? But it's like, I do get it. I get, the depression in your life, feeling like you can't get away from it. Sometimes it's not even necessarily the feeling, and like as somebody, like I said, who is like I've struggled with anxiety and depression in my life. For some people it is. For some people it's this feeling of like this world would be better without me, when maybe like they've messed things up, they feel guilty, they feel depression because of that. For me, it was never that. For me and for a lot of other people, it's more just like, I'm just tired of feeling this way, man. Like, it's like nothing seems to be working. Like, right? Like, and there were points in my life where, like, same thing, man. Like, counseling isn't working. The medication isn't working. Like, whatever it is, it's like, I just don't want to feel this way and I don't know how to get rid of it. And then it's like, you know, the one way that you're like, and I know this is like a dark topic here, but it's like, I get it. And if you're there, like, if you're not there and you're like, why is this guy talking about this? It's like, then this isn't for you. But if you're there and you're like, I know there is a surefire way to not have to feel like this anymore. And that's taking your own life. And I know that seems like a solution, but it's just not. And I can tell you that it does get better. And I haven't been I've talked about it, a little bit on this podcast when it's just been me, before Jesse came on board. But I know, like, I've talked about, medication, therapists, stuff like that. Um, there are times when you're doing all of the right things and it's still there. And that really sucks. And that's really hard. But I can tell you as well, as somebody that has struggled with depression and anxiety, that has gotten to a point where it's just like, I don't understand when this is ever going to get better. It does. It does get better. And talking to somebody doesn't always help right away, but it will help eventually. I'm telling you, it will help eventually, because a lot of things, especially as dads, especially as husbands, especially as guys that are just like, we're getting up every morning, we're doing what we need to do. It's like we're doing it all, like we're doing all of the things that should make us happy, and we're not. I know it's easy to get angry about being depressed, right? It's like, I don't understand. And I know I remember times where like my wife would try to like rationalize with me and try to figure it out, or like, friends would try to figure it out. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm telling you guys, I don't know. I don't know why I feel this way. I can't explain it to you. Someone would be like, well, everything's great in life. It's like, I know. It's like, I know that. I know everything's great. You don't think I understand that? And that actually makes it worse. And I know as guys, like, who struggle with being emotional anyways. And then it's like the only emotions that we feel is like, anger and sadness, really. Like, it's like when we feel that sadness, we're like, I shouldn't feel this way, right? I did it all. I'm working for my family. I'm there for my kids. I'm making it to the gym. I'm, hanging out with my friends. I'm working my job. I'm doing a good job with it. I'm doing all of these things. It's like, stupid idiot. Why do you feel this way? Why are you so stupid? So I get that. I get when people feel like that, and I get why people feel like that. And it's this vicious cycle where it's like you feel sad and then you get mad at yourself, and then you're sad again and you get mad at yourself. So I'm not saying all this to just like dig the hole deeper for all of us. I'm saying all this to tell you that you're not alone in any of it. I know it can feel really isolating sometimes. I know you feel like you have to be the solid rock for your family. You got to be the one that doesn't have the emotional ups and downs. You got to be the one that stays strong. You got to be the one that's like there for your kids and there for your wife and there for your coworkers and there for everybody else. But it's like, it's okay to have somebody to be there for you. Like, that's it. Like, there are people out there, there are friends out there, there are therapists out there. Reach out to Jesse and I. Send us a message. Just vent on there. It's fine. That's what we're there for, man. Like, we want to be there for other dads, especially, but for anybody that's struggling with this stuff. Like, the whole hardcore scene, there's so many tough guys in the hardcore scene. And I think what we're starting to realize is that you don't have to just be this tough guy that's like, nothing ever bothers me. I just listen to hardcore and, do whatever. And it's okay to not be okay. It's all right to not be all right. And if you need somebody to talk to, like, go find somebody to talk to, man. It's crazy how like easy it can be after you just make that initial awkward step of reaching out to somebody. And I think that's it. I think a lot of times we hold back because we don't want to get past that initial like awkward, like, hey, can we talk? Or it's like, reaching out, and setting up an initial appointment with, a counselor or a therapist or something like that. I think even with that too, like it's okay to like tell a therapist that it's not working out. Like it's okay to go find one that actually really works for you. I think a lot of times people feel like they're stuck with a therapist that's not super helpful, and different therapists for different times too. Like I remember I saw a therapist for a while where like really all I just needed to do is I needed to tell somebody my story. Like I needed to tell somebody what I had been through and where I was feeling. And this guy was just super nice. He was like a grandfatherly figure. He just sat and he listened and he affirmed me and, real like highlighted where I was doing really well and just like was like, yeah, that really sucks at the parts that really sucked. And it was exactly what I needed throughout my, like mental health journey. I got to a point where it's like, I didn't want that anymore. I got to a point where was like, I need somebody to tell me what to do now. Like, I kind of need somebody to kick me in the butt and tell me, like, okay, you've gotten past like the point where now you vented a lot, now it's time for action. So it's like I needed to find somebody else. That guy was great for the time. So just know that there are different types of therapists. You can go find another one. Their feelings aren't going to be hurt. It's okay. If you need to drop them and find somebody that fits a little bit better. But really, I know like we say this a lot, but if you are in that place, reach out to us, man. Like, I know I don't know you, you don't know me, but it's like we kind of know each other, right? Like we're connected. If you have found this podcast, if you found this Instagram page or this YouTube channel, like the algorithm knows you. It knows the music you like. It knows the type of person you are, maybe even better than you do. You're here for a reason. All right. Like you're here. And so we already kind of know each other. I may not have ever met you, but that's the beauty of hardcore, right? And we've talked about that. Like the whole, did we just become best friends? Yep. And it's true. Like there are a lot of people out there that I know don't understand you, whether it's, they don't understand the music you listen to, the culture that you're a part of. They don't understand the feelings you're going through, but I do, man. I get it. Jesse gets it. Like there are people out there that get it. You can step into a room at a hardcore show. And that was one thing that Haywire's, vocalist said last night too, that I really appreciated. He's like, most of the people he's like, more people in here will be your friends than your enemies, kind of a thing. Like you look around a room with hundreds and hundreds of people and you're like, I can hang out with most of these guys, like most of these guys I could be friends with. I better hope so, because I'm about to crowd surf. So it's like, I hope that I can be friends with these guys. And so, yeah, like this is it's a beautiful community, man. It's a beautiful community. Yes, we've got some bad eggs out there or bad apples out there. We've got people that are crowd killing women, stuff like that at shows, or targeting people. Not they don't get, but they don't get it. That's the thing. They don't get it. They don't get hardcore. If that's what people are doing, if people are shoving people just for the sake of hurting, man, I've been hit with brass knuckles at shows before. It's not the spirit of hardcore. It's just not. When people are out there to hurt you, to fight you, I was like, well, a lot of comments are like, oh, well, people that, hardcore dance or crowd kill, people that wish they knew how to fight and don't. It's like, I don't want to fight. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it looks like we're trying to start a fight. It's the furthest thing from our minds. Most people, well, I don't want to fight. So there's a lot of love out there, though, man. I think that's the point I'm trying to get is there's a lot of love out there for people. Like if you're willing to go find it, if you're willing to put yourself in a vulnerable place and say, hey, I need help. I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to just listen. Whatever it is, we want to be there for you. That's the heart of this podcast. And, I was thinking about that as we, whatever, we see numbers go up on views and likes and follows and all that stuff. I'm like, this all has to mean something. This has to be for something. And so if there's even just one guy out there, one dad that's like, I'm tired of burdening my wife with this. I want to be strong in front of my kids. I need somebody to talk to. If there's just one person out there, and we've had people reach out, which I really appreciate. So yeah, also shout out to the people that came up to me at the show last night that like knew the podcast, that, recognized us from there. Super cool, man. It's just one more opportunity to meet people and hang out with people and connect. So, that's what I've got, reach out to us, talk to somebody. I don't want to see any more dads. I don't want to see any more dads leave their families, permanently because they can't make it. We're all there to be with each other. And I think the hardcore community is a really special community where we already connect on this deep level where it's like we get our weird, musical tastes and all of that stuff. Like, let's continue that train rolling and just be there for each other. So appreciate you guys. Very last thing today, it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but it's just me, freewheeling it here. So very last thing this week, I'm changing it up. I actually had a song here that I was going to add to our Dads Who Mosh playlist, and I changed it up as I was talking about other bands because I'm like, nope, there's another song that needs to go on there. But as you guys know, we are on a mission to create the greatest playlist of all time. Very subjective, I know, but we are on a mission to create the greatest playlist of all time. Feels really great recommendations for this playlist. So I'm excited to, actually some of the ones that you guys have recommended are definitely going to go on the playlist. So, stay tuned to see what gets added there because there's some really great recommendations out there. Ones I'm like, oh yeah, that's going on there for sure. We're excited to have more guests on here to have them, make their honorary additions to the playlist. But the one that, will probably come as no surprise, especially with how much I've been talking about this band this week. The one that I'm adding this week, it's by a band called Haywire, and it's a song called Haywire. If you watch, if you've been to any Haywire shows recently or watching their YouTube shows, it's the first one they kick their set off with. We're a band called Haywire. This song's called Haywire. I got to add it, man. I love it. I love it so much. I love this song so much, man. And it's just like, I think it speaks for itself. It captures, the band's energy, the band's vibes, the sound of the band. Man, it's crazy that, Haywire has really only been around for a couple of years. And I think Haywire in a lot of ways is reshaping the hardcore environment, the punk and hardcore environment. Another one of those bands that is just, they're blown up in popularity as they should, but they're doing it without sacrificing who they are. And I love everything that they're doing. So I know most people on this that are listening to this have heard of Haywire already. I don't have to tell you about Haywire. But if you haven't heard of Haywire, go listen to Haywire immediately. Start with the song Haywire. Go watch all of their videos on YouTube, their live videos. Go follow them. One of the best bands in the scene right now. Just the best people, some of the best music. Haywire by Haywire is going to the Dads Who Mosh playlist this week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for all of your input, all of your feedback on the social media posts. Just really appreciate you guys. I love talking about all this stuff. I love the back and forth about the scene, about bands that you should know, about moshing, about wearing band t-shirts, all of that stuff. I love all of that stuff, but I also love, the dad side of things where we kind of break it all down. Like, let's get real for a second here. Let's be honest with each other. Let's be there for each other. I love all of it. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for checking it out. And we will talk to y'all next time.